Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church Fade to Black.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did that leak out on the air? Keith and I yapping. All right. Fade to Black. We're back. Roswell week with the little Chad Meek. That kind of rhymes. All right, let's go. Let's get this one cracking. Charles is in the house. Venti cup. Yeah, well, it's the Lynn Lewis Elvis mug. The gallon size. All right. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Here we go. Today's Wednesday, August 27th. We are 239 days into the new year. As always, we are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in sunny, beautiful downtown Burbank. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I can't read Twitter and talk at the same time. Isn't that funny? All right. Let's hear it for freedom of speech, huh? You got to love that. You got to. All right. Today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday. Today. Rush guitarist Alex Lifeson is 61 years old. He needs to shed about 20 pounds. And also, today, Daryl Dragon, the other half of Captain and Tennille, is 72 years old. Where did the time go? What was your favorite Captain and Tennille song? Mine, Muskrat Love. The thing is about Daryl, I don't think about Captain and Tennille. I think about Rumbo Recorders right here in the Valley, the studio that they own. And I believe they still own it. And that's where Guns N' Roses cut all their stuff. Well, Chinese was done in a couple different studios. But, yeah, Rumbo Recorders, man. Right there. Right there. Canoga Park, down the street. Dale just posted. That's the wrong picture, Dale. That would be the drummer. Follow us on Twitter. You do. You want to come jump in the sandbox tonight. Come and hang out. And how do you do that? Just follow us on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. I don't know how many tweets were done last night, but in 4 different windows it was just in my window, it was over 500 tweets. I did like 3. I tried to keep up. It's an amazing thing to witness every single night what goes on Twitter. So humbling, so cool, so fun. That's what you want to do. @JChurchRadio. I'm serious. If you can hear my voice right now, that means you're listening to the show live. So that's what you want to do. @JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Come hang out with us. It's a good time, I promise. And, follow, like, subscribe, Facebook, YouTube. Tonight, Don Schmitt in the house, continuing Roswell week. I've got copies here. Actually, they're both signed, too. Let me flip to I think they're signed on the title page. Yes. In gold, no less. 2 copies of Don and Tom Carey's latest books, Inside the Real Area 51 and Witness to Roswell. And so during the interview tonight, I think we'll give away 1, maybe 2 to a couple of first-time callers and that have good questions for Don. So we'll do that later on tonight. And like I said, I got 2. I also have a signed copy of Jesse Marcel's book, Alien Crash at Roswell. But the thing is about all of these, and certainly Alien Crash at Roswell, if I give it away and you get the book, don't complain that it has been read, because I read this stuff. It's really good. So, yeah, we will open up the lines later on tonight with Don Schmitt. Email throughout the show. If you have any questions for Don, you know what to do. Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can also go over to the website and go to the contacts page. It's kind of strange. It's a mix, but a lot of the email comes through the contact page. I don't know why everybody's scared and they don't email me direct. I see it when it finally gets forwarded to me, and it's kind of funny what actually ends up here inside the studio. Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. That's what you want to do. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Don Schmitt. Tomorrow night, open lines. And it's Open Lines Thursday has turned into, did we ever, by the way, I'm going to watch Twitter. Did we end up with a name for Open Lines Thursday? We need to come up with something really cool. I know if I'm going to have everybody rehash, but we need to come up, because Open Lines Thursday to me is a little dull. It is what it is, but I don't want to call it Open Lines Thursday. We need to come up with a Fade or Not acronym, something. We need something for Open Lines Thursday. So let's. I will watch Twitter tonight. We'll see what comes up. All right. We need something. This post was on Facebook from Paul Nicolau. Paul Nicolau. Cool name, by the way. And check this out. He said, you should have a bit in the show called Ask Clifford, referring to Clifford Stone. He says, all of your UFO questions will be answered. And I thought, that is good. That is really, really good. I'm going to continue with the post here in a second, but I just want to stop and that is a great idea. And I'm sure Clifford will be open to it. I'm going to call Clifford tomorrow and see if we can do an Ask Clifford. I think that's great. All of your UFO questions answers. He says, I still cannot believe there was or is a role like that in the world. Nothing in your life after that would seem normal. He's referring to Clifford. He says, I'd like to think of UFOs as this. We trade with them. They trade with us. We phone them to buy some Ep.115. I'm going to pause right there. They phone us to buy some of whatever we can offer. Why is it never thought of that way? Intergalactic trade. Now, Ep.115. I don't know how we didn't talk about that last night. I don't know why that didn't come up with Bill and Jesse and Denise. But Ep.115, out of everything that, S4 and gravity drives, everything that Bob Lazar had talked about, one of the things was Ep.115. And at that time, there was nothing on the periodic charts. There was no Ep.115. There is today. What do they call it? Something. UUP, Element 115. Somebody post that really quick on Twitter. I forget what it's called. But it exists today. Bob said they supplied us with Element 115. Now we're making it. It disappears instantly, but it is now on the periodic charts. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? I don't know why. I don't know why Bob isn't talking about that today. Like, I told you so. Pulled a Preston Dennett. Here's another email. Check this out. Dear Mr. Church, I am Barrister John LaPapa, a solicitor of law and a personal attorney to the late engineer R.W. Church, who died with his wife and their only daughter in a car accident here in my country. The reason I am contacting you is to present your name to the bank as his next of kin relative, since you have the same surname with him, so that the bank will transfer the $6 million that he died and left behind into your bank account. Then you and I will share it. Reply back to me for details. Woohoo! Yeah. That was like the 10th one of those I got this week. I'm $6 million richer. I'll let you know when my attorney writes this guy. Oh, that is just hilarious. I really thought that stuff died out years ago. And apparently they're kickstarting it again. Too funny. Just to let you know, even I get those emails. $6 million. It's always $6 million too, isn't it? Pentium, Element 115. Just posted. Pentium, Element 115. Pentium. This email came in from Kevin Verma. Check this out. It's always great listening to your shows. Although I cannot catch up with every episode, I at least make sure to listen to them, everything that I deem very important to me. Like, I have listened to your recent episodes with Richard C. Hoagland, David Wilcock, Carrie Cassidy, Eric Von Daniken, and a bunch of others. I live in Noida, India, and I love to listen about the event Contact in the Desert from you. But unfortunately, I could only dream to be a part of it. But guess what, Jimmy? Here in India, we really want to do something about all of the mess out here with humanity. From Kevin Verma. How cool is that? In a foreign country, when I lived outside of the United States and you would hear about things going on inside the United States, like, oh man, I'm stuck. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck. I feel his pain. I really do. Kevin, thank you for listening to the show. And we were talking about that last night. Worldwide, it is absolutely amazing. I got a bunch of email today from Brazil about the show last night. And yes, I'm surprised I didn't get more email from Texas. But Brazil is seriously represented here. It is very cool. So anyway, let's see. Email from Demian. He says, one night I'm going to keep count of how many times you say, and I quote here, and this is the thing, end quote. Ha, 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 ha. Well, Demian, this is the thing. Got a crutch. And this is the thing with that. Sometimes you can't help it. But, this is the thing, Demian. I do the best I can. All right? Right on, Demian. He writes me every single day. He's a really cool cat. Here's another email from Ben Miller before we hit the break. Tuesday night show with a trio of guests worked out well, referring to last night. I had not heard Jesse the Third before and was pleasantly surprised at how well he presented the Marcel family and the Roswell experience. I know that although He is not really young. He does represent a needed, knowledgeable replacement for the generation of respected UFO researchers who are passing away. The South American trip to Argentina sounds more than interesting. Thanks for introducing him to all of us. That's from Ben. Yeah, absolutely. Jesse's getting the word out now, with, the recent passing of his father and so forth. Now the torch has been passed, and he really, really knows what's going on. So, that was a fun show. Thank you, Denise. Also, last night, Denise sent me an email, and she said that she doesn't really do radio. She was a little nervous. I thought she did fine. She said the last show she did on the radio was with her father. And so last night, she was just very thankful that we were holding her hand all night. It was good, Denise. Thank you, Jesse. That was really good. Oh, man, Chad Meek on Monday. That was pretty cool, too. Tonight, Don Schmitt. Tomorrow night, Open Lines Thursday. Fader Chat into Friday. That's from Les. That's actually pretty good. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Stay with us, everybody. Don Schmitt at the bottom of the hour.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Yeah. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Wednesday night. Don Schmitt. Continuing on with our theme this week, Roswell. With the little Chad Meek thrown in. Looking at some of the tweets. How about phone encounters of the Thursday kind? That's from Jim Nelson. Betty Oliver says, Black Thursday. That's kind of cool. I like, phone encounters of the Thursday kind. So that would be PETK, phone encounters of the Thursday kind. Oh, a bunch of Thirsty for the Truth Thursdays. How about, that's from Michael Anderson. This is from Sherilyn. She says, just having a chat in my living room Thursdays. And then Leslie says, drink twice, Jimmy. I'm not sure what, although I get it. Let's see here. Oh, check this out. Hey, Jimmy. This is from Justin Barber. He says, hey, Jimmy, East Tennessee redneck here, wondering if you ever catch how the universe works. Now, I'm reading the tweet. I'm reading it. Do I ever? I think Justin needs to call in. He needs to call in and tell us how the universe actually works. Check this out. Check this out. This is a headline. This is from the Washington Post. And this is the headline. New Obama plan calls for implanted computer chips to help U.S. troops heal. That's the headline. So I read the article. I'll read part of it to you here. When President Obama on Tuesday highlighted 19 executive actions he says he is taking to improve the mental health of U.S. troops and veterans, one of them centered on a particularly novel effort, the development of new computer chips designed to moderate the nervous system to help with everything from arthritis to post-traumatic stress. The project is headed by DARPA, a Pentagon agency that develops a variety of high-tech equipment for the U.S. military. It's known for the Electrical Prescriptions Program, or ElectRx, pronounced electrics. Program officials say the goal is to help develop a technology that would help people heal more quickly through the use of biosensors and electromagnetic devices that control human organs. This is the Washington Post. I'm quoting here, instead of relying on only medication, we envision a closed-loop system that would work in concept like a tiny, intelligent pacemaker, said Doug Weber, the program's manager. It would continually assess conditions and provide stimulus patterns tailored to help maintain healthy organ function, helping patients get healthy and stay healthy using their body's own systems. Man, if that doesn't sound like a sales pitch. Obama did not reference the new program directly in his speech Tuesday at the American Legion National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. In a joint fact sheet released by the Pentagon and the Department of Veterans Affairs, however, the agency said DARPA will start a new $78.9 million 5-year research program to develop new minimally invasive neurotechnologies that will increase the ability of the body and brain to induce healing. Officials say the BRAIN Initiative, that's an acronym, BRAIN Initiative, which stands for Brain Research Through Advancing Innovative Neurotechnologies, includes a related DARPA effort to build new brain chips that will be able to predict moods to help treat post-traumatic stress. It is known as the SubNets program, short for Systems-Based Neurotechnology for Emerging Therapies. Teams at both the University of California, San Francisco, and Massachusetts General Hospital. Is that where House was? Isn't that Mass General? In Boston are involved. The major hurdle for the electrics program may be shrinking the technology needed so that it can be used in the body. Implantable devices are already in use to fight inflammatory diseases and other health problems, but most are about the size of a deck of cards. That is about the most frightening thing. You can read into that what you will, and all of your nightmares, everything that you think, it's all right there. Walter Lewis just said brain initiative, mental reprogramming, and you're blissing out. Your government makes you happy. That's exactly right. Brad Kelly says, on all Obamacare, people will be chipped. Others will be exterminated. Prince on plane. Bradley says that's where House was. But isn't that just about the scariest? I mean, just to even say it, leader of the free world chipping our soldiers for improving their health and brain activity and nerves and post-traumatic stress. It creeps me out. I'm not that guy. I'm not Alex Jones. I'm not putting the fear in anybody. I'm just saying nobody's going to chip me. So under the guise of, we're going to make you better. It's going to help speed up your health, your repair. You're going to get better quicker. Just let us chip you. Could you imagine in a hospital and getting, Princeton, Plainsboro. That's it. Princeton, Plainsboro. I'm wrong. Right on, Brad. Thank you for that. We watched every, I don't know how many there were, but we watched every episode of House. That was actually a pretty good show. All right, we're getting caught up right now before we hit the bottom of the hour. I'll just let you know we're getting caught up on 24. And I think I told everybody we went backwards. We went from the newest season backwards instead of starting with season 1 and moving forward like you should do logically. And we got stuck like at season 4 going backwards, going, wait a minute, there's just too much. And so we went back and we jumped from season 4 to season 1. And man, season 1 was low budget. And so in 24, that's what we're doing. And we're going, how did I get on 24? How did I do that? Oh, House. Okay. All right. Look at these tweets about these chips. Bad becoming robot. Exactly. Fader Church Thursday from Mysteriously Unnamed. Sorry about that. Fader Church Thursday. Should we have church? Thank God you're not Alex Jones. I don't know if we should even have church in there. It implies, this is the thing, we'll attract people that are going to come into the show and expect a sermon of some kind. Black Chatter Thursdays, I like that. From Signaling Method of Signaling. Open Guest Thursday. Okay. Fader Church Thursday. Black Chatter Thursday. I'm kind of digging that. Yeah, I'm kind of digging that. We got to put this one to bed. Next Thursday. All right. Keep it coming and send me some emails and just keep it coming. And keep it on the front of my brain and we'll get a list going. Freaky Fader Thursday. Evesius, did you? Fade to Chat Thursday. All of these are good. I'm with the Gene just said that's a good one from Method. Wow, love Black Chatter. Okay, looks like we got 2 on the table. All right, 2 on the table. I will be giving away 1 or 2 books tonight. It's up to you. First time callers. Excellent questions. That's what you want for Don Schmitt. I've got 2 signed copies, signed in gold. Really, Don's got some pretty nice penmanship. I mean, he dresses well, takes care of his hair, but I'm telling you what, these look really nice. And somebody's going to want these, and we will be giving these away tonight. When I come back, it is Donald Schmitt. Tomorrow night, church on Thursday, Holy Cracking Batman Church. Tomorrow night, Fade to Something Thursday. Open lines Thursday. When I come back, it is Don Schmitt. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Nancy Burns is in the house tonight. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
It's church on Thursdays. Man, see? Teeter talk. That's good. Fader signals from Rick Sinnott. Eugene, fade to wrap up. Fade to wrap up. That's good. That's good. Black chat. That's good, too. I kind of like that. Fader signals. It's all good. Let's go. Let's get this one cracking. Don Schmitt. Don Schmitt. Don Schmitt is the former co-director of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies, where he served as director of special investigations for 10 years. Prior to that, he was a special investigator for the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek and the art director for the International UFO Reporter. Schmitt graduated from MATC with a degree in commercial art and graduated cum laude from Concordia University with a degree in liberal arts. He is presently taking graduate courses in criminal justice. Schmitt is the author of dozens of articles about UFOs, as well as co-author of 2 best-selling books, UFO Crash at Roswell and the best-selling Witness to Roswell, which came out in 2007, and also The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell, which came out in 1994. He is also the author of Roswell, the Chronological Pictorial. Don has led and organized the 3 only archaeological dig projects at the actual Roswell crash and debris field. They were conducted in 1989, 2002, and 2006. The second effort became the central theme of their highest-rated show up until that time in the 10-year history of the Sci-Fi Channel, The Roswell Crash, Startling New Evidence, which also resulted in the book, The Roswell Dig Diaries, of which he was a contributing author. I would like to welcome to the program. Let's see if I think we're ready. And Don, sir,
yes.
How are you?
How are you, Jimmy? I'm fine.
You sound great, man. Everything good?
Good. Yes, you too.
Roswell week here. Well, it's kind of actually, which is kind of funny, going back to when you were with us at Contact in the Desert. It's more like it's been a 3-week Roswell run here on the show, and there is no end to the talk and discovery. I mean, I could probably do Roswell for about 300 days this year, and never repeat myself. You know, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty astounding, isn't it?
It truly is, and that's one of the reasons that we often, would actually take some umbrage in making the statement that Roswell was the granddaddy of all UFO cases. It's the one case that, unlike any others, that we can point to the government and say, whatever was recovered, whatever crashed back out there in 1947, you retrieved it, you recovered it, and you sat on it now for 67 years. And whether it's been former presidents Carter or Clinton, the late Senator Barry Goldwater, or the late Congressman Stephen Schiff of New Mexico, or even the former governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson, they all lament the fact that they could not even have access to the files. So I would always suggest that any skeptic that thinks they know more than even a former president about this particular case, I'd like to know who your sources are. Because whoever they are, they somehow eluded even the office of the presidency.
Before we move on, this tweet just came by, and Luciano from Brazil told me to tell you hi.
Yes, absolutely. He's a good friend.
Yeah, he hung out with us last night. We had Jesse on last night and Denise, and we had Bill Burns on. We had it was a trifecta roundtable. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty amazing evening.
I'm sorry I missed it.
Well, there's always.
But I've had the experiences before. And Bill is also a good friend.
Yeah, Bill. I'll tell you what. That is a walking pillar of knowledge right there. Bill Burns is frightening. He is a fright. Oh, man.
In a good way.
No, in the best of ways.
Yes.
I'm so blessed that I'm able to. Bill and I talk, once or twice a week, and we have these just animated phone conversation. Then I go on his show,
from coast to coast, right?
Yeah, well, and then from coast to coast. We should call Bill and I when we come on host to host. He has his show is great.
Yeah, that's
Feature
already been
theater.
taken, I guess. So,
Yeah, totally. Now we have so many things to discuss tonight. Now, but I want to start off with, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a softball, and then we'll just sit down and get comfortable and do it, Fade to Black style. But the first thing, because you were one of the original researchers, right back in the beginning. There was only a handful of guys that were doing it back then, as you know. Stanton, you, Randle, Cal.
Well, actually, Stan had a good 10-year head start on
it. He had a 10-year head start. But what I mean is, back then there was just a handful of guys that were out there getting it done.
That's correct.
And,
yes.
And so how did you? I'm sure you heard about Stanton and his stuff from 1978, but was that what brought you in, or how did you get your start in Roswell?
Well, actually, and I always emphasize the point, Jimmy, that I was a complete skeptic on Roswell. I just, even 5 years after Moore and Berlitz's book came out, Roswell Incident, I wrote a paper where I just poo-pooed the entire notion. I could not accept that something of that magnitude could be kept a secret for so many years, that there had to be whistleblowers, there had to be people that were even possibly slipping out pieces of physical evidence. And when I was working with Hynek, and it was a particular case that never came up, but yet I was fully aware of the work of the late Leonard Stringfield at that time. And Len was the first one, I mean, even before Stan, that started to suggest that he had sources who were involved in crash retrieval cases, and not necessarily Roswell related. And Hynek was pushing him for a good 5 years for access to his own files, because Len was one of those people, a true gentleman, a noble researcher, in the sense that you could go to Len with the deepest, darkest secret, and almost like a confessional. It was safe with him. He just did not ever divulge or release any names, addresses, phone numbers. And true to form, as much as Hynek pushed him, even bringing the late astronaut, Apollo 11 astronaut, Neil Armstrong, into the equation, if Armstrong would assist Hynek in working with Stringfield on these cases, would he then open his files? Len still turned it down. He had promised these witnesses he would not, violate any confidentiality, and so that was the case right up until the time he died. Well, as the Director of Special Investigations of Hynek's Center for UFO Studies at that time, I wanted to look into this. I thought we could go down to New Mexico, and I had singled out Roswell. I thought we could go down on one weekend. And Kevin Randle and I, we would make this weekend jaunt. We went in February of 1989. And this was after I had even had a meeting with Stan. He was speaking at Lakeland College in Illinois. And I showed up backstage because I wanted not only his blessing for conducting an independent investigation, but I wanted to know from him, from the master, that there was still, fertile territory. There was still something to seek out, some witnesses to still track down.
And was your
even though I was a skeptic?
Yeah, that was exactly my question. Even though what was your intention, to change your own mind?
No, I think it was truly to come up with a prosaic, conventional explanation, prove that the original weather balloon was still the correct explanation after all those years. And as I had so often, especially working with Hynek, I was explaining 95% of the cases that we were investigating. I was explaining cases that even Hynek found to be rather unsettled, unexplained. And he always kind of came back to me to, for one last comment, one last piece of research and investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And so after meeting with Stan and essentially, getting his blessing, telling me that there most likely were hundreds of potential witnesses still interviewed, not tracked down, still out there. We set up as far as the trip. We went down through Albuquerque and then out through Corona. We actually got close at that time to the debris field based on directions given to us by the very rancher Mac Brazu, who had originally discovered the crash, his late son Bill Jr. And then we went into Roswell. And the first thing that's kind of surprised us about Roswell, arriving after dark, was just how large a city it was. It just went on and on and on, for miles. And so that was the first thing that we came away with. But then when we actually started to interview first-hand witnesses to the debris, to the wreckage, and it's something that, Jimmy, after all these years, that whenever someone proposes a new explanation, we always refer to these as the theory of the month, because somebody always comes up with a counter explanation, anything but extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
And they never address the witnesses' descriptions of the material. This weightless, paper-thin, foil-like material that you couldn't cut, you couldn't burn, and an acetylene torch couldn't cut through it. Bullets couldn't penetrate it. 16-pound sledgehammer, as Jesse Sr. described in numerous interviews before he died, couldn't even scratch or mar the surface of this material. And then what we refer to as our Holy Grail, the same type of material. But this you could crumble, you could fold, you could crush into a ball, and every time you'd place it down, it would unravel, it would smooth right out and flow like water. Now, this is in 1947. And one by one, witness after witness describing these identical characteristics. And then getting, in our cars and heading back to the airport, and Kevin and I realizing, my God, we got to get down here as soon as possible, because what if we're wrong?
How easy was it to do? You guys rolled into town. I'm assuming nobody knew you two.
No.
What'd you do? Go into a bar and start talking, how did you kick this off?
Well, that's the first thing about Roswell. There really aren't any bars, taverns, or saloons. You have some bars within some of the restaurants, but it's not generally known as a drinking community. And we fortunately had placed phone calls. In the case of Brazel, Kevin had sent a letter in advance, which he appreciated. Nobody had ever done that before. Even as far as the owner of the respective ranch, we had contacted him in advance, secured his permission to go out to the site. We had placed phone calls to Walter Hott, Frank Joyce, a number of other people involved. So things were prearranged. And so appointments were set up. But overall, it was like, here we were, like the two outsiders from back east, and Tom Carey, my present partner. We always joke about how they perceive us to be the revenuers, that we're here from the IRS, we're here from the government, and we're only here to help you, that type of impression.
Right.
And in fact, it lasted for years that people still distrusted us in that regard. So it took trip after trip after trip to slowly gain their confidence, gain their cooperation in entrusting us with information that just boggled our minds, and realizing that, and I still stand very firm on this position, Jimmy, in that if this did happen, it's the biggest story of the millennium. And as a result, how do you walk away from that? And then secondly, if we're wrong in our investigation, it doesn't change anything. But if the skeptics are wrong, if they, in maintaining that this was something very conventional, very off the shelf, nothing extraordinary about it at all, if they're wrong, it changes everything. And I would sooner side on the possibility of still coming up with something. But here we are now, approaching 30 years later, and no one has been able to provide a single witness to any alternative explanation. Not a one.
Was your mind then changed? Did you switch the role of skeptic as you guys rolled out of town?
No, not overnight. We just realized that we needed to approach this, as we even would meet in Chicago at QFOS, and our scientific director at that time, Dr. Mark Rodiger. We decided two things. First of all, we were going to approach this as though it was legitimate. In other words, we weren't going to telegraph our actions, but we still were going to respect the witnesses. We were going to respect their testimony. We were going to go wherever the evidence took us. But nonetheless, we weren't going to get caught with our pants down, so to speak. We weren't going to get blindsided. And as a result of always trying to stay one step ahead of the puppeteers, the cover-up masters, so to speak, the people behind this wall of silence after all these years. And then the second thing we decided was that we were going to shine as much light on the investigation as we could as a safeguard, not only for the witnesses, but also for us. The more public we would make our activity, the less chance of something strange, an accident, something out of the ordinary happening. So we realized that if it was true, we were playing hardball. We were getting ready to go into a hardball game, playing with the professionals, and we made sure that we were going to be prepared and up for that type of an event.
Were you ever able to talk to Hynek about it? What was his opinion?
Well, as I described, Hynek was becoming more and more
Hold on, we've got some noise in the line. Is that from you?
No, I'm sitting...
Wow. Holy crap. That was nasty. You got to love the NSA. You just got to love the NSA.
And it was on your end because I didn't hear anything.
And it's coming on again. Wow. That is a bizarre sound.
I have my headphones on and the microphone in front of my mouth, some distance away. And
it is bone quiet here in the studio, too. It sounds... that is a... I'm going to throw that out to Twitter. Is that going out live on the air? And we will see. I'm going to see if Keith texts me in. Yeah, that's weird. Sounds like almost like wind. Okay, let's move forward. Were you ever able to talk to Hynek about Roswell?
Hynek, the consummate astronomer, the biggest problem he had in dealing with the phenomenon from the get-go, even when he started out, when he was head of the astronomy department at Ohio State, just down the road from Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio, was the distances. How do you travel physically from point A to point B? He would use the analogy, he would cite the example that if you take the thickness, not the width, but the thickness of a single playing card from a deck of cards.
Right.
And that would equal the distance from the Earth to the moon. How many cards would it take to equal the distance from the Earth to the nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, which is 4.3 light years away? And then he would, nobody would come close. And he would throw out precisely, not the amount of cards, but the amount of distance the cards would cover. And it would be 19 miles of cards.
Wow.
The thickness is Earth to the moon, and to the nearest star system is 19 miles of playing cards. And so that was to him insurmountable. In other words, he just could not accept as an astronomer that anyone could get into a spaceship and travel as far as to, such a distance physically. And why the Earth? What made us unique? Why the Earth of all places? And yet, in the latter years of his life, he was becoming more and more interested in crash retrieval cases. As I described, his approaching Leonard Stringfield and trying to gain access to his files and the witnesses regarding all these alleged crash retrieval cases. And I will never forget, Jimmy, the last time I actually had dinner with Hynek. And we were at a restaurant in Evanston, Illinois. And he pounded his fist on the table and he went, "Don, it's smacking more and more of nuts and bolts." And to me, that coming from Alan Hynek was probably the most profound admission he had ever made to me. The point is that it was someone else's aircraft, someone else's spacecraft that was actually arriving, interacting with our environment, depressing ground, swirling grass, physiological effects on the witnesses, and that some were crashing. And what haunts me to this day was the fact that after Alan had passed away, after Dr. Hynek had passed away in 1986, we found in his private files all these handwritten notes, because the Hyneks had moved to Scottsdale, Arizona from Evanston in the last couple of years of his life. And when he had retired from Northwestern University, the university had willed him an abandoned observatory in Truth or Consequences in the western part of the state of New Mexico. So he was going to live out the latter part of his life in Arizona and then have his own observatory. Well, cancer had something else to say about that. But unbeknownst to us, he was going out into the desert, the high desert of central New Mexico, Lincoln County specifically. And he was tracking down Roswell witnesses. He was talking to the old ranchers, the old hired hands, the people who knew Mac Brazel personally, the people who handled the wreckage, the people who saw things firsthand, and all in his handwritten notations. This needs to be investigated. This needs to be followed up on. And we didn't find these notes until after he had passed away. And so little did we know that he posthumously was passing down the gauntlet and telling us, you guys need to finish this. You guys need to complete what I simply started. And in many ways, just like his widow, Mimi, would often say to us, Alan would be very proud of you boys. And if she said it once to us, she said it a dozen times. Alan would be very proud of you boys.
I think I might have asked you this before, but, and excuse me if I did, but do you think he was privy to some information? Do you think that he knew that he was told or was exposed to the real truth about ET?
I think he was told at times that it was so sensitive that he shouldn't ask questions. He shouldn't go there. Many times, Project Blue Book, which he had consulted on for almost 19 years, he threatened to resign because he realized he did not have access to the hardcore cases as he would describe them to us. He often would interview pilots, both commercial and civilian, or military, and they would tell him of just some of the most profound incidents, aerial encounters, near head-on collisions, SAC officers, Strategic Air Command officers, describing scrambles and locking their weapon systems on unknowns and just being totally outperformed, outmaneuvered by these unknown aircraft. And yet, whenever he would go to Wright-Patterson and look for these cases in Blue Book, none of them were ever there. And Hynek would always complain, well, what about this base incident? What about this officer's sighting? What about this scramble? And they always played dumb. They didn't know what he was talking about. He became very frustrated in that, as he would describe to us, all the hardcore cases were going upstairs, as he would put it. That Blue Book was nothing but a PR front. So in the latter stages of Blue Book, he clearly came to the conclusion the phenomenon was real. But he wanted to retain access to the data. That's why he stayed on. But he was already secretly creating his invisible college, as he called it.
Right.
He was lecturing more and more
right.
Towards the end. And it was one of the reasons that the Air Force also needed to keep him on a short leash. And that was why they kept him on board, because they realized that the moment they would turn Hynek loose, that he would then, without the handcuffs, without the shackles, would go after this full bore.
And there was one other problem that he could never overcome. You know, he wasn't in the military. He wasn't in the boys club. You know, and
that's correct.
And no matter what, that's a frustration that he had always had. You're not in the military. You're not. You're a civilian. And
you have no need to know.
That's the way they're always going to look at you. No matter how close you are and how important you think you are to the military, you're still not a member of the boys club.
Exactly. He was their spokesperson as an astronomer. Whenever he could come up with an astronomical explanation, they would always trot him out before the microphones to come up with some of the most ridiculous. And he knew they were ridiculous explanations, but he was buying time. He was hoping that someday they would take him in to that club.
And they never would.
Correct, Jimmy. They had no intention of ever doing that.
There's something strange that goes on. You know, I'm an Army brat, and this is the phenomena. I'm telling you how it is. When your life is on a military base, your family, you're going to school, you're growing up as a kid, when you see civilians or when you go off of the base and you go into the civilian world, you look at civilians with another set of eyes. It's another world. There's the military world with military families and your closed existence, and your friends, everything around you, your dad's friends, your parent, everybody's in the military. Civilian is something that you spot, you notice.
Yes.
Go off base, you go into a sandwich shop, you're in a civilian place. You're with civilians. You know, you shop at the PX. You do it. You know, it's just a bizarre world. And
you go. You actually develop a secondary vocabulary.
Totally.
A manner of speaking. Yeah.
Totally. 100%. Absolutely. And Hynek.
It's interesting you mentioned that, though, because before the Roswell incident, and given that Roswell, most noted, aside from the crash, for also having the first atomic bomb squadron in the world headquartered at the Roswell Army Airfield after World War II. The Enola Gay, the Boxcar, they were hangared there. The two B-29s that had dropped the two bombs to end World War II. You had the best officers, the best crewmen, pilots, doctors, nurses, enlisted men, all were part of that one unit. And what are the chances, the irony that they would be involved, again, with what I believe is the biggest story of the millennium. But nonetheless, they had to coexist with the locals in Roswell. So there was this rapport. There was this constant sharing of being in this town together, albeit all the personnel on the base at Roswell had a top secret security clearance. If you swept the broom on the base, you still had a top security clearance because you had the atomic bomb.
Absolutely.
And yet they frequented the local restaurants. They filled up. I can't tell you, Jimmy, how many of the personnel lived in town. They lived off the base. Jesse Marcel lived off the base. He lived about 7 miles from the front gate entrance. Walter Hott, the public information officer, lived just a block down from Jess Marcel on 7th Street in Roswell. So they had this interaction, this rapport. But I mention this because what all of the locals who were especially struck after the incident, after this had all been shut down, and Roswell, the personnel at the Roswell Army Airfield were embarrassed. They were laughed at because they couldn't tell the difference between a weather balloon and something truly extraordinary. So the brass at the Pentagon would have us believe. But what was interesting is that they cut themselves off from the outside world. They cut themselves out from the civilians within Roswell. All the people that they had befriended, who they had associated with, who they had interacted with, sharing that small little town of Roswell, which is on the way to nowhere. It's just that oasis in the middle of the desert there in southeastern New Mexico. And immediately after the Roswell incident, that ended. As though they all had their lips sealed, as though they were all told, you're not to fraternize, you're not to associate with civilians any longer.
Right.
Because you might say something.
We're at the top of the hour, so let me do some. This is KJCR Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network, and I am your host, Jimmy Church, and we're talking to Don Schmitt. Roswell Weeks here at Fade to Black. And now to continue, I just had to read this tweet to you, Don. You're going to love it. This is from Eugene. He says, please ask Don, whatever vampire turned him, please have him turn me. Jesus, he looks like he's in his 30s. I just had to. I had to go there. I just had
Someone approached me at the Roswell Festival and almost a similar remark. Don, you have to be an alien. You haven't aged in years. And as it turned out, it was somebody I hadn't seen in about 20 years. And I think it's just, much of it, Jimmy, is just having a passion for life, a passion for, being involved with something, especially something that's important. And realizing, too, as Stan would say, and Kevin would say, and my partner Tom Carey would say, we're racing with the Undertaker. And part of it is being still in the heat of the chase. And there's nothing like still being out on the playing field, as I use that analogy to begin with, that I can get old later. I can slow down later. For the time being, we still have to try to wrap this up.
No, and it does keep you young, by the way. Fighting the good fight will always keep you young. Now, I want to ask you this. With fresh on the heels with Jesse and Bill and Denise last night, and all of them told me to tell you hello, so I just got that out of the way.
Same for me. Yes.
Is this out of we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I think it's very poignant because you just mentioned Walter Haut, and for me, which I think he's the most important part. Or there's so many important parts, but let me get to my point. Out of all of the evidence that is out there, and you're in court, you're F. Lee Bailey, right? And you're laying it on the table, and you've got one shot, you got one crack. What is that piece of evidence that you bring forward?
Well, first of all, we have a growing number of deathbed testimonies, all admissible in a court of law, all accepted as physical evidence, for that matter.
That's right.
And we had worked on Walter. I shouldn't use that word, worked, but we just realized from the get-go, from the very beginning, that Walter was not telling us everything. Walter was the public information officer. He would have served as the liaison between the base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, and the local media. There were 2 radio stations. There were 2 newspapers in Roswell at that time. And when Roswell broke, and they decided to put out that famous press release, which was dictated to Walter by the base commander, Colonel Blanchard. Walter would type it up, and then he would distribute it. He would take it personally to the 2 papers, to the 2 radio stations. And then hearing through the years just how close he was to Colonel Blanchard, who was never reprimanded. He was certainly not demoted for making such a faux pas, for making such a blunder. My God, he puts out a press release claiming they recovered a flying disc, which turns out to be nothing but a weather balloon with a radar reflector kite. You know, it'd be the type of thing they'd send you packing, and West Point graduate or not, how could you make such a mistake? And yet he would go on to become a 4-star general by the age of 50. And when Blanchard would die at his desk at the Pentagon, they didn't just send a wire to Walter, still living in Roswell. They didn't make a phone call. They sent a special courier who flew all the way to New Mexico, went to Walter's front door to inform him that his mentor, his former base commander, his dear friend, that Walter often referred to as his uncle, General Blanchard, had just passed away. That smacked of someone so close that how is it that he would have shielded you? How is it that he would have kept all of that information from you? That you just put out the press release and that was the extent of your involvement? Well, as we pressed Walter year after year, more and more and more and more and more, he would divulge little pieces here and there. And I was sitting in Walter's office one particular Sunday afternoon, and we were just small talking. And all at once, I just threw it out. I said, Walter, how tall did, because he'd always refer to Blanchard as either Butch or the old man.
Here comes this. Here comes this. What is going on?
Yeah.
Now it just ended. I think you're combing your hair. Tell us the truth. Just tell us the truth. You're blow drying your hair. It's okay, Don. It's okay. It's okay.
I am not doing anything but talking.
Oh, it just ended, just like that. Okay. Okay. So. Back to, I don't want to make light of this, but that is, it's really funny how the timing of that. Okay, so
I'm sitting with I'm sitting with Walter in his office, and Blanchard has not even come up. And all at once, I throw out the question, Walter, how tall did Butch tell you the bodies were? The bodies recovered at Roswell. And his arm shoots out from his chair just above his shoulder, which is about 3.5 to 4 feet from the floor. And he looks at me like, you know good, you got me.
Wow.
And from then on, one thing leading to another, and divulging, providing us with more and more information, to the point that he finally agreed to doing the sealed statement, which would be then the responsibility of his family, his 2 surviving daughters, Julie and Beth, as far as the final disbursement, the disclosure, whatever their decision was. He would sign the sealed statement 2 years before he passed away. It was with the full involvement of his personal physician, who said that he was totally lucid. He was perfectly fine at the time to actually put together such a sealed statement. And then another year after he passed away, his daughter Julie approached me and said, Don, we would like you to include it in your next book. which turned out to be witness to Roswell. And then the final chapter in the book was the entire story of our involvement and how this all came together, and how Walter Haut, in his sealed statement, admitted that not only had he seen the wreckage, not only had he been out to the crash site, but he had also seen the remains of the craft, and he had also seen the bodies, the non-human bodies that were recovered at the site north of Roswell.
So you're saying your one piece of F. Lee Bailey evidence would be Walter Haut?
Certainly, his sealed statement would be part of that presentation, that evidentiary presentation before a judge and jury, which would demonstrate that even a sealed statement, which was witnessed, which was notarized, and that he had signed his name to, and his daughter Julie had stated to us over and over again that if there was a single word that he would not have approved of in that statement, he would not have signed it.
We read parts of that last night. Walanda, I'm going to ask you right now. Go ahead and tweet the Haut. Geez, what did we call it last night? Anyway, tweet that. I forget what I called it.
Well, it's not an affidavit. It is a sealed statement.
Right. I think that's what I called it last night. The affidavit. Yeah.
And you certainly saw last night how excited. In fact, it was the one thing that truly convinced Bill Burns.
Yeah. No. Bill was. That was his piece, and
he is a lawyer.
Yes, he is a lawyer, and a PhD.
And I can assure you, Jimmy, we had worked with numerous lawyers in putting this together, and with their full cooperation. In fact, one of them was the very son of the late counterintelligence officer, Lieutenant Colonel, who in 1947 was Captain Sheridan Cabot of the Counterintelligence Corps, who had accompanied Major Jesse Marcel out to the debris field. And it was his lawyer's son, Joseph Cabot, who had provided us with this solution, which he had failed with in getting his own father to sign a sealed statement. We then applied it to Walter Haut. He had agreed to doing a sealed posthumous statement, and the rest is history.
For me, this is okay. Well, Denise said last night. She said her evidence would be the eyewitness testimony, and Jesse said the same thing. For me, I think it's the press release, not Walter. Yes. Well, I mean, not, but the press release to me is ground zero of all of everything ground that happened. Zero. Yeah, everything happened. Right. Everything happened after that. And certainly, Walter prepped that from Blanchard. He's not going to release something that wasn't fact. It's we're talking about an era of great secrecy in atomic weapons and what Roswell represented to the rest of the military and the rest of the world at that time. Walter's not going to go and do a press release like that at that moment, and the press release was done. Well, I'll ask you, but it was approximately a week after the crash. They had plenty of time to get the verbiage right.
Precisely. And it's something that it's still amazing how the debunkers still suggest that this was a knee-jerk response, that Blanchard was a loose cannon, as one of them had described him. Yeah, loose cannon who goes on to become a 4-star general by the age of 50. And that Washington itself, the Pentagon, had the wreckage, some of the wreckage in hand already by the late evening of Sunday, July 6th. The press release doesn't go out until Tuesday around noon Central Standard Time on July 8th, a day and a half later. Now, this, as you said, was a week after the crash. And the point is, it all came together. This was all ingenious for the fact that they created this straw man. They could not deny something big had happened. because it already had leaked out to the press. The rancher, Mac Brazel, had already spoken to Frank Joyce at radio station KGFL. It was already coming out. So they had to come up with a counter explanation. And the Christian Monitor newsletter from that day of Tuesday, July 8th, puts out the bulletin point by point, minute by minute, and you see the slow evolution from the flying disc, the flying saucer, into the weather balloon over the course of the next 5 hours. And that, too, is when I was invited, when we were invited to present papers at the then Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, their national conference in Dallas, Texas in 1992. And you're talking about PSYCOP, which was founded by the late Carl Sagan, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke. And Kevin didn't go. I went by myself. And the entire premise of my paper was the press release. The way it was worded, the timing of it, the fact that they didn't release it until noon for a reason. The staff meeting was at 7:30 earlier when they decided this was the way they were going. This is what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sat on it still till noon. Well, the reason, again, all ingenious, because all of the morning newspapers have already been put to bed, and the afternoon papers are already all going to press. So you fully realize that no one's going to be able to get the press release out in time, and later that afternoon you're going to pull the rug out and you're going to come up with the retraction, the counter explanation. And so what is the bold headline the very next day? It's a weather balloon. Not that it's a flying disc, not that it's a flying saucer.
Right.
And thank God that one newspaper on the West Coast, the San Francisco Chronicle, was the only one that held the presses to get the press release out. Otherwise, we may not even know about the press release.
This is what we're going to do. I've got noise in the line, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to reset, Don. I'm going to call you back, but in the next 2 or 3 minutes, are you using a USB microphone headset?
Yes.
Okay, unplug it and plug it back in. I'm going to call you back in 2 minutes, and we'll reset the line. We'll start clean.
You got it.
You got it. Thanks, Don. And we'll take a quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Yeah, I don't know what the noise is. We will figure it out. Don't sweat the small stuff. Needed to take a break anyway. This is Fade to Black. We are live with Don Schmitt. It is Roswell week here on Fade to Black. I'll be back right after this. It's Sabotage. I'll be back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com.
JJCR in your face.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Yeah, I know. I hear it, but I can't chase it down. Hopefully we've got it all reset. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Shoot me an email. Got a bunch of email that has come in. I will get to all of that. I promise. Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. We do have Walter Haut's affidavit, sealed affidavit, up on Twitter. If you want to see it, just follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio is what you want to do. Simple enough. And then hashtag DMRadioNet. I have retweeted it. It is out. And there you go. Somebody just tweeted that damn NSA. This is from Steve. He says, That damn NSA spy needs to shave his face, causing so much noise trying to listen to the best damn radio show in the universe. Yeah, it's weird because the noise isn't coming from here. Everybody needs to understand the noise isn't on this end. It is crystal clear, crackly quiet in here. So there you go. I'm going to reset with Don here in just a second. I want to give him time to reset everything. Sometimes with USB headsets, and I kind of knew he was using a USB headset, when you have it plugged in for a long time, the way that the voltages run in a computer can get a little funky. And he's probably had it plugged in all day waiting for this show. So with that, hopefully everything is reset and we will do it. Okay.
Hello.
All right. Now let's see. Now you are clean, Don.
I did shower.
Yeah, you are clean.
Good.
All right. So
let's see how long it lasts.
No. Now it's a whole nother ball game. I can tell.
Great.
I can already tell. All right. So yeah, for me, when we can talk about all kinds of things, and I get the eyewitness testimony, and I understand that, and from everybody involved, going from Major Jesse to Jesse Jr. and Frankie Rowe and everybody that was involved. I get that. But to me, hard evidence is that press release. That's what I slide across the table, and that is evidence bag marked 1 right there. And
well, consider even, the wording, for example. It states that the disc was stored by a local rancher. Well, we know that part of it was stored. There used to be a livestock shed about 3 miles to the north until about 10 years ago. It was still there. And that part was true. But they state that they have recovered the disc. In other words, they have it. There's nothing more to see there. We have it. Nothing else to go out and investigate. And needless to say, there's still an entire debris field of almost 3/4 of a mile long that would take 50 to 60 troops the next 3 days to clean up. But yet the press release is very specific. We have it. It doesn't name the ranch. It doesn't name the rancher. It doesn't mention Blanchard, the base commander. It only mentions one individual, and that is Major Marcel. And he conveniently is being sent up the chain of command over to Fort Worth, Carswell Army Airfield, to show some of the wreckage, supposedly, to Blanchard's boss, Brigadier General Roger Ramey. So he's removed very conveniently from the picture. Well, the military at Roswell, they nab the rancher, Mac Brazo. They go up to the ranch. They can't find him there. And then they suspect the press, and it's Frank Joyce's boss, Walt Whitmore Sr., from the radio station KGFL, who has the rancher hid out overnight at his home, where they've done a wire recording. Well, the military finds Brazel there. They abduct him. They take him from Whitmore's home. They confiscate. You talk about First Amendment violation. This is the media, and they confiscate the wire recording as well. So now the rancher is also removed from the picture. And Colonel Blanchard, the base commander, it's after a 4th of July weekend. Why does he first go on leave after the holiday?
That's interesting. Yes,
he announces that afternoon, Tuesday the 8th, after the press release has gone out, he's going on leave. Well, according to his operations officer, Colonel Joseph Briley, that was a blind, as he put it, that Blanchard actually went out and he set up a base of operation at the crash site, which makes a lot more sense than going on leave. But the point is, the 3 important people involved, the base commander, he goes on leave. The intelligence officer, he is over at Fort Worth, kept overnight nonetheless. And the rancher, he's abducted by the military and held incognito for the next 5 days at the base.
All of this over a weather balloon.
All of this over a weather balloon. All of this after the balloon explanation. And that's something that the skeptics never address. They just deny it happened. They just say that it doesn't matter that the rancher claimed that he was detained, that he was kept for 5 days. It doesn't matter that his son, Paul, who was concerned that nobody was attending the horses on the ranch that his father supervised, and that the ranch house where the horses were corralled, unlike the cattle and the sheep that could graze in the open pasture and fend for themselves, the horses needed to be fed and watered each day. And Paul described how twice he was physically ejected from the ranch. He was kicked off by the military, who had commandeered the ranch house, which was 10 miles from the debris field. And then his other son, Bill Jr., he and his wife Shirley, they came down from Albuquerque after they read about their father in the Albuquerque Journal newspaper. And they realized they better get down to the ranch and manage the livestock and the operations of the ranch while his father was again being detained, was being kept during that time at the base in Roswell. So everybody's lying. The rancher, he just made a big mistake over a weather balloon. He was looking for publicity, so they would say. Walter Hott put out the press release on his own because he was looking for publicity. Major Marcel was, again, this moron who couldn't tell the difference between the off-the-shelf weather balloon material and something truly extraordinary. All these people have to be fabricating, hoaxing, lying for this to be simply explained away as a weather balloon. As we've been discussing this, we could take this into any court of law. I've had judges, I've had attorneys, I've had senators, I've had congressmen, I've had former governors tell me we could take this into any court of law and we would win this hands down.
I said this last night, and I'm not making light of it. It's more human nature. If Jesse showed up, if Major Marcel showed up on that ranch and it was a weather balloon, he would have turned to Mac and simply said, "Dude, don't call me again. Throw this stuff away. I'm out of here. I'm a busy guy. It's a weather balloon. I'm out of here." And
I can do you one better.
Please.
I can do you one better, because the rancher, Brazel, he didn't rush to judgment. He still was in charge of supervising that ranch. He had to complete his chores for the week. That's why he didn't venture into Roswell until Sunday, his day off. Before that, though, he had gone from neighbor to neighbor. He had gone into the nearest town of Corona, which is 2 hours away. He had gone to the rodeo on the 4th of July in Capitan, and pieces were being handled, and passed around from rancher to rancher, as described to us. Nobody could identify this material. There was a state police officer by the name of Robert Scroggins, who district happened to be Lincoln County, where this had taken place. And he, too, couldn't come up with an explanation. And then when Brazel takes the material not to the military, but to the sheriff in Roswell of Chavez County, Sheriff George Wilcox, and he can't identify it. His deputies can't recognize this material. And then they contact the base. And Blanchard, the point is, he doesn't dispatch a couple of grunts, a couple of enlisted men to check this out. He sends his 2 head of intelligence, Major Marcel and Captain Sheridan Cavett, the head of counterintelligence, in the event it's something foreign, covering all bases. This is a 4th of July weekend, and it's important enough that he dispatches his 2 leading intelligence officers to go investigate this. So it wasn't a case of they needed to go and look and find whether it was a balloon or not. It was because no one up to this point could identify any of this unusual wreckage. No one.
You know what Jesse told us last night? I don't know if he's ever told you this, but maybe he has. But it was crazy. He said about a year after, in 1948, that Colonel Blanchard came over to the Marcel house to play bridge. They played bridge over at the house.
Yes.
And popped a piece of debris on the table, and they sat and talked about it a year after the crash.
And we heard that story as well. And then we also heard a similar story from Mary Cabot, the late Mary Cabot, the wife, the lifetime wife of Sheridan Cabot, when she described to us, because the Cabots and the Marcels also used to get together for a weekly bridge game. And after everything had calmed down and all the personnel at Roswell were told this was never to be brought up again, this topic was taboo, you're not to discuss it with anyone, it's off limits, it's top secret, you're not to say another word. And Mary described to us that on this one particular night, the women remained in the front room while the men were in the kitchen. That Jessie and her husband, Sheridan, were in the kitchen with a pot over the stove. And they were heating something up. They were heating up a piece of the real material, trying to see if the stove would have any effect, if the heat would have any effect on it. And it had absolutely no effect. And that Cabot would remind Jesse that he better get rid of it, that the material was classified top secret, and that according to Mary, they went out the kitchen door, they walked out onto the patio, and when they came back, they didn't have the piece with them any longer.
You know what?
That's from Mary Cabot.
It is so frightening to me, and I mentioned this to you before, but it's so frightening to me how close we were to, I mean, literally minutes, if not hours, but minutes away of never knowing about Roswell at all.
Yes, yes.
You know, that is, and when, doesn't that kind of make you, knowing what you know now and all of your research, doesn't that make your stomach kind of turn just a little bit, little scare, you know, like you're dropping off a roller coaster kind of thing, to how close to a successful cover-up they might have had?
Well, and how close we were to never opening up our own independent investigation of this.
Right.
That I could have just gone on, and Kevin Randle would have followed suit, and Tom Carey would have never become involved. There may certainly have been others beyond us, but the fact that as skeptics, we weren't even interested in looking into this. And it was because of the Jess Marcel Jr.'s and the Walter Hotts and the Bill Brazzos and the hundreds of additional witnesses that truly have taken the blinders off and opened our eyes. And we realized that, yes, if not for our own independent investigations, if not for Stan Friedman, if not for others who have been willing to, step forward and brave enough to say, I was there, I was out there, I held it in my hands, and it was nothing, as Major Marcel said, it was nothing made on this earth. If not for these whistleblowers who have been coming out for decades. That's another misnomer, another mistake that the skeptics, promote. This idea that nobody has stepped forward, there haven't been whistleblowers, nobody has been speaking out. Well, they have been all these years. Marcel, DuBose, Hott, on and on. The problem is that it's because of the ridicule factor, the manner by which they're treated by the media, the press, and especially the way that they are character assassinated by the debunkers. You think I'm going to step forward and admit I've handled pieces from another planet and realize that my very reputation, my credibility, that my family is going to be scorned, I'm going to be laughed at, I'm going to be attacked? Because these people are relentless. These people, they never give up in trying to destroy the truth as we've come to know it. And to me, that's what angers me. That's what frustrates me to no end. The fact that they have the agenda. We don't. Their agenda is to make sure that the final witness passes on and it becomes cover-up complete. That is their agenda. For whatever reason, to me, that's unforgivable.
Yeah, and if Major Marcel hadn't have had that conversation with Stanton, if he would have just, let his conscience stay inside of him, where would we be today? You're right, Project Complete. It's a scary thought. How many? We were discussing this last night, and I know that I discussed this with you before. How many bona fide eyewitnesses are still alive today?
I would say just a few dozen, from hundreds down to just a few dozen, and all the officers are now passed on. We're talking strictly enlisted men who were 17, 18 years old at the time of the incident, a few leftovers even from World War II. We have some of the sons and daughters. You mentioned Frankie Rowe earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have some of the children who are still alive, but as certainly as evidenced by, Jess the Third's own father, just a year ago. We're starting to now lose even the children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jesse Marcel Jr. passing away just last year.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is all the more sobering as to the limited time left. That if we don't track down these remaining dozen or 2 dozen witnesses, it's gone forever. Whatever information, whatever knowledge they have, it's gone forever.
I have some email questions I'm going to throw out at you really quick. This one's from Lou. He says, apparently you are aware that James Fox spoke to former USAF Chief of Staff McPeak about Roswell, and McPeak said he saw a large number of Roswell files spread out on a table, but there were so many, etc., that McPeak didn't stop to look at any of the files. What do you know about, and what thoughts do you have about the McPeak revelation?
I had the good fortune of meeting General McPeak last October, and I even joked with him about Roswell in our brief exchange. But there was a Discovery Channel documentary where they claimed that they had access. They presented all these Roswell files. They were all stamped, top secret Roswell. But they weren't dated 1947. The files were all dated 1994. These were all the Project Mogul files. And so I also would suspect that the files that McPeak is talking about could very well have been not the original 1947, not the legitimate files pertaining to the true incident, but to the Project Mogul case files, which were divulged, which came out by a Pentagon press conference with Colonel Richard Weaver in September of 1994. And so they're now all labeled the Roswell files. These are the files I think McPeak was talking about.
And what year was this? That McPeak
September of 1994
is when he supposedly had walked past this table. That was in 94.
That's what makes the most sense to me. The idea that he would have turned a blind eye to actually seeing the real files of the real material and the alleged bodies that were recovered, that type of thing. I can't imagine that you just walk by and go,
exactly.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Did you have a direct conversation with McPeak about this, or was it just in a roundabout Roswell?
A roundabout, just passing comment. And I even joked about he had a drink in his hand, and I'm sure it wasn't alcohol. And I made the remark that he had a drink get up his nerve to be interviewed, and he laughed. We both laughed. So it was far from a serious conversation. I was in a hurry to catch a plane at the time. But even just speaking of generals, that's because we had interviewed the late General Thomas DuBose, who was General Ramey's chief of staff, his adjutant at Carswell in 1947. And we have DuBose on tape. We have a sworn affidavit from him where he states the balloon was a hoax. They were the ones who substituted the balloon for the real material. And we didn't read this in any media account, did we? Again, the press just turned a deaf ear to it. Whether it's Jesse Marcel, whether it's General DuBose, whether it's General Arthur Exon. I can name General Kenner Hertfield, for example.
Right.
Who said that he was convinced that Roswell was from outer space.
Right. Why do you think, there's a second part to this question, I'm going to get to this in a second, but why do you think the media was so ready to accept the weather balloon explanation back then? Why wasn't there some gumshoe crazy guy, like yourself or like myself, that was willing to just go in there and not accept that? Why it seems like it was just written off immediately and forgotten about within minutes.
Because this is just 2 years after World War II. It's a whole different atmosphere. The military walked on water back then. If the military put out an explanation, much to the relief, especially of the press, it was the end of the story. No need for any further investigation. Now, it doesn't mean that there weren't reporters that doubted. In fact, even reporters at the Roswell Daily Record, they doubted the balloon explanation. There were reporters that I had mentioned earlier, like Frank Joyce at KGFL, at the radio station, who knew the truth, who knew that this wasn't the actual explanation of what had transpired on that ranch north of Roswell. But they were ordered, they were threatened with the loss of even their licenses. Judd Roberts, for example, who was a reporter and a newsman at the same radio station, received a phone call from the FCC. A FCC representative by the name of Slowey, who warned them that if they proceeded to put out any information on the true nature of the incident, they would lose their license within 24 hours.
Yep, I read that.
So it got their attention real quickly. And so, yeah, as much as they bit their lower lip and they realized, unfortunately, we let the military grab this when the rancher was smart enough in that he did not go to the military, that if the press would not have suggested, as Frank Joyce did, that this sounds like a military matter, this sounds like a crash of potentially a military device, you need to contact the boys at the Roswell Army Airfield.
Right.
That just imagine if the press would have gotten their hands on the physical evidence first. Just imagine the press would have been able to break the story. The world would have changed overnight. Everything as we know it, by today's standards, would have been changed overnight. And unfortunately, here we are, 50, 60, approaching 70 years later, and we have to undo the cover-up. We have to undo all that damage control that the military, through with the cooperation of the press, managed to accomplish back at that time. And now we're securing deathbed statements, we're getting sealed statements, we're getting sworn affidavits, we're doing everything through the back door. We're doing everything after the fact with the hope that we'll still get our hands on a piece of some physical evidence. But time's a wasting.
You know, I have gone back, Don. It's fascinating. I have gone back to the early 90s, mid 90s, and listened to different radio shows around the country that were starting to discuss not only Coast to Coast, but other radio programs started to discuss Roswell. And it was fascinating to hear everybody discovering this again.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
It was new to everybody, and how that self-discovery was happening in real time in 92, 93, 94, 95.
I was there.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
but how little known, how little was known about Roswell at that time. It is such a fascinating part of ufology to hear everybody's excitement and fascination and discovery and talking about and then unraveling of other things, you know, a second crash, a third crash. And it was just an unbelievable part of radio history. Everybody should just go back and pick a radio program, any overnight, late night talk radio program. Like you said, you were part of it. And it's crazy how little was known.
Yes, yes. And just think of this, that it was enough, there was enough pressure from the public also at that time, which then necessitated the involvement of the late Congressman Stephen Schiff of New Mexico.
Sure. Yeah, it was
representing his own constituents in New Mexico who were saying, we're sorry, we were involved in this incident back in 1947, and the government has it wrong, and we would like you to represent us in finally getting the truth out.
It was almost a step short of outrage. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And the way he was stonewalled by the White House, by the Pentagon, by all the branches of the military, by all the departments of intelligence. I never forget how he had personally sent 3 separate letters to then Secretary of Defense Les Aspin. And Aspin ignored him on 3 separate occasions, a senior congressman. And it's like, you really want me to go away, or do you want to entice me and infuriate me all the more, and realizing that there's got to be something to this because you're ignoring me, hoping this will go away, and It's not. And then when the Air Force had the Pentagon press conference that we talked about earlier in September of 94, and they came out with their 3rd official explanation, Project Mogul. And I thought, well, there goes our association with Congressman Schiff. And I call him up at his office in Washington. And I will never forget how the first words out of his mouth were, Don, and excuse my language, but they're a bunch of GD liars. And so it was like, okay, what do we do next? Well, the congressman then put out a press release, and he accused the Air Force of a massive ongoing cover-up. And here again, the willing accomplices in the press. He has a press conference at his office in Washington. And wouldn't you know it, Jimmy, not a single reporter shows up.
Wow.
I mean, you're a senior congressman.
Yes.
Representing people of New Mexico who claim that a genuine flying saucer has crashed in your state in 1947, and you've been subjected to harassment, intimidation, physical threats. You know better, but you've been told if you ever talk about this again, we're going to kill your children. And then they come out with a 3rd and a 4th explanation, trying to, again, run out the clock, stall for time. And you call a press conference after you put out a press release accusing the Air Force of a massive ongoing cover-up. And not a single reporter shows up.
The other thing for me that smelled really bad was the way that the media held the GAO as the end-all, be-all. And
Yes.
that's the way that the press handled it at the time. With I read everything that I could find on it at the time, and that nobody answers to the GAO, the General Accounting Office. Nobody answers to them. They have the power and the might to do whatever, and every single document, everything would be turned out. Everything. The GAO is that. It was amazing how that because the GAO couldn't come up with anything, then that was it. That was the end of the story.
Well,
and to me, that was the beginning of the story.
But the GAO really didn't try to come up.
Of course not. Of course not.
That was not as far as their mission. In fact, even the congressman had offered them dozens of first-hand witnesses to interview, to direct them, to steer them, to guide them through this. They would not talk to a single witness. They were not interested in that. They did a document search because they felt if we find anything, we can just provide them with something to read and they'll go away. They'll leave us alone. And they came up empty-handed. And as a result, basically, again, nothing to see here, nothing to investigate. Leave us alone. And that was even with an assurance by the Air Force, should they find any documents, that they'll immediately provide them not only to the congressman, but also to the GAO. And as Newsweek magazine very aptly put it, as a preemptive strike on the part of the Air Force, that's when they came up with their Project Mogul report. They didn't provide it to the GAO. They didn't provide it to the congressman. They had their own press conference at the Pentagon where they trotted out this new explanation. And that's what, as I said, infuriated Congressman Schiff. And that's when he called them a bunch of GD liars.
And then right after that, the crash test dummy.
Yes,
it came out after that. And the public
in May of
is
1997, just before the 50th anniversary.
And the public isn't stupid. And it's very easy to research anything. And, to find that they were 5 years off of that.
And then they came up with their new medical, explanation, this new malady that no one, even in the medical profession, had ever heard of, that being time compression, the idea that as we get older, not only do we start to confuse the years, but we also start to confuse the decades. Well, what didn't matter to the debunkers, once again, was that when we could demonstrate that just about all the military personnel who were at Roswell in 1947 were not there in 1952 when the crash dummy project had originated. So they could not have even been there to even witness these anthropomorphic wooden crash dummies. Again, the truth doesn't matter with them. It's whatever story they can get the public, the press, to take and run with. And it just softens their work.
Yeah. And it's not only the public and the press that they're asking to be stupid here, but it's also you.
Yes.
They are absolutely convinced that you're just going to back off and accept it, not do any research, and then just play dumb or be dumb or get lucky in that, Don Schmitt or whoever, Kevin Randle, Stanton Friedman, point a finger at somebody, Tom, anybody, that you guys are just stupid. And you're going to accept that and move forward and not do any due diligence. And that's the crazy part. I mean, I was reading it, and I'm immediately jumping on the internet myself at that time, and going and looking and figuring things out for myself. And now, if I can do it, and I'm not the brightest bulb in the room, trust me, but if I can digest that and see through it, then so could everybody else. And they did en masse too.
Yes, they did. They did. What's also interesting is that it caused dozens of witnesses to finally say enough is enough, and they came forward. They were in their declining years, and they finally said, "Now you're insulting us beyond all level
right
of insult," in suggesting that not only couldn't we identify very common off-the-shelf balloon materials, but now you're telling us that we were making it up, that through time compression, that we were fabricating the entire incident because we were confusing the years and the decades. And the very designer, the gentleman who actually manufactured in his plant and maintained these wooden dummies, these crash dummies, his son contacted us because his father in 1997, when they came out with that explanation, he actually called up his son and said, "This is absolutely ridiculous. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm the one who made these dummies. I'm the one who maintained these wooden crash dummies. And on top of it, whenever they would impact the ground, when they would parachute down and they would strike the ground, they would break up. They would dismember. They would break up into 20 pieces. And that's why I had to maintain them, because I had to reassemble them after every drop." Well, we don't have a single witness who has ever suggested any of the bodies were dismembered in any shape, manner, or form. So again, another nail in their ridiculous explanation coffin. But again, the witnesses don't matter to them.
Right, right. Hey, what is the Midland picture?
We're talking specifically about a number of pictures that were discovered a number of years ago through an estate sale, and they're part of a collection of many other pictures. And we have had to determine who originally took the pictures, what possible involvement or association they may have had with someone in very high office at that time. We've had to date the pictures. We've had to demonstrate that the pictures do not demonstrate anything of a human nature that is all presently being done. Some of the research involves some investigation in Midland, Texas. I don't know why they're referred to as the Midland pictures. That is something new to us, but we're still performing due diligence. We're still making sure that the dating, the imagery is consistent with not only Roswell, but any such possible crash retrieval. We are talking about a body, and when all of the research that is necessary to prove their authenticity is completed, then they will be made public, and not until.
So I have tried to find them online. Are they published anywhere online right now?
Absolutely not. No.
You know, you're teasing. You're teasing me.
Nothing is available online, and for the reason that if you go on to YouTube, there's so much garbage, there's so much nonsense out there. We just don't want, if there's any chance that these are legitimate, we're going to make sure that we've done all we can to establish them as either being legitimate or not.
What are in the pictures, Don?
It's a body.
That's it?
Yep.
No. Is the body in a room or is it outside?
It's in a room. It's in a reclined position. It very closely resembles what eyewitnesses have described, and for the fact that if indeed the picture is from around 1947, before there were any descriptions, before there were any movie depictions, before there were any books or anything that could have demonstrated what we typically refer to as the humanoid, the gray, that type of dramatization of a UFO occupant. That in itself will be very profound. And so it's all the more reason that we are taking every opportunity, every expert available to make sure that if this is genuine, we're going to make sure that we have taken it to every possible level to establish that point.
What is it? What exactly do you have in your possession? Is it an original print? Do you have the negatives too?
Nothing in my possession. Nothing in Tom Carey's possession. Nothing in any investigator's possession.
Who has the picture?
They're owned. They are privately owned, and I have to also respect the fact that both Tom Carey and I signed an agreement of non-disclosure, and I'm not at liberty to divulge anything really beyond anything I've mentioned so far.
Okay. Well then, but I'm not going to stop. So when you look at the pictures, what do you think? What's your conclusion?
I'm more interested in the provenance, the circumstances by which they were taken, by who they were taken by, what possible connection that the photographer had to a high level authority within the government, especially back in 1947. If this all comes together, and if it all continues to come together, it doesn't prove, it will never prove, because you don't have a tissue sample, you don't have a cadaver, you don't have the real thing.
Right.
It will never prove. I mean, photographs and photographs of this nature can be falsified. They can be faked. And that's why we've made every effort to have them dated, to take them to the experts. It won't be Don Schmitt and Tom Carey claiming anything when they finally are released. It will be by the best experts in the field who will be stating that the body is not human, it is not animal, it is not primate. The dating is of this particular time period. So we're making sure that we rely on the professionals to I want to put in such a way that when the experts, the professionals, are willing to also go on camera in conjunction with the release of the photographs.
You've also said you've said they, so there's more than one photograph.
There are two.
There's two.
Yes.
You have looked at and investigated enough of the period of 1947. You're not a young guy either, as well.
No.
So you're a smart guy. Is your gut that it is the correct period, 1947?
Yes.
Really? So.
Yes.
So there's something in the photograph that is a dead giveaway, then, that it is a period shot.
No, and I don't think I'm going to violate any confidentiality by stating that the images have been taken to a number of photo experts who specialize in specific cameras.
Okay, just don't say Jim Delatoso.
No.
Okay,
no.
Good. Okay.
No.
Did I just say that? I'm sorry.
We're talking about and there are two. We were the ones who were warning everybody about the alien autopsy video. There's never been an actual frame of footage ever released.
Right, and to that end, don't tell me Frank Santilli is in possession.
Ray
Santilli is the guy that's in possession of this.
I've never
picture.
met the man.
Okay, good.
Have not so much as ever exchanged an email or talked over the phone. So no, and for the fact that that situation left a bad taste in a lot of people's assessment, opinion of Roswell, and we're just making sure that we don't go down that road again.
That is such a dark part of ufology. By the way, I'm just going to respond to Jeremy May's tweet here. He just said, "Wait, not a young guy, so you're a smart guy?" I think we need a rewording there. He said you can't be young and smart. That is too funny. And what I mean by that is, yeah, exactly. What I meant by that is you're mature, is what I meant to say, that you can, and not to let your emotions grab a hold of you. You're going to look at this in a logical sense.
And not repeat mistakes of the past.
Right. And by the way, I'm sure Ray Santilli is a great guy to go out and have drinks with, by the way. I'm sure he's a lot of fun. But that was a dark. Let me tell you something, Don. And I said that I had Philip Mantle on the show. Great guy.
I know Phil very well.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. And I had him on the show. And I'll say this. I was one of the millions that went down to Tower Records, ordered that video, paid my $69.95 or whatever they charged for videotapes back then, which was highway robbery. Not just Ray, but the industry in general. I paid for it. I ordered it. I got it. I went upstairs to my condo, watched it, and then invited friends over and had an autopsy viewing party. And we all watched it. And to see, and then man. But I was one of those guys. I was suckered in.
And we weren't. In fact, we dismissed it. In fact, we were
were you hopeful? Were you hopeful?
No, because we saw it for what it was from the very beginning. As much as we pressed Philip and like Michael Hessman, who was a staunch advocate at that time,
right?
Until we had an opportunity, if such a photographer was still available, where these film canisters were discovered. He supposedly had other film, of Elvis and other such things.
Yeah.
I mean, all we want to do is see some physical. There again, you talk about going into a court of law. And we had seen stills from the video months before, because they were already asking our opinion. And we were already telling them, be cautious, be careful. This does not resemble anything.
Who were you telling them? Who were you telling when you say them?
Specifically Philip Mantle.
Okay. Yeah.
And it wasn't a case of where we have ever, launched into we told you so type of reaction on our part. But at least nobody could ever point the finger at us and say, well, you guys were fooled too. We never were. We pointed out things when we actually would see the video that were not consistent with 1947 technology. The technique of making the incisions, for example, because of our involvement as far as with the motion picture industry, we quickly had things pointed out to us that was not consistent with a legitimate autopsy. Everything about it smacked of a prank, a hoax. And so we were never on that bandwagon, I think, and much to our credit.
I feel bad for like Cyril Wecht and Winston and Stan Winston and these seriously professional. I mean, Stan was, the preeminent dude in Hollywood forever. That somebody so respected.
Special effects and props.
Somebody that is so respected. I'm talking about Spielberg respect.
Precisely. And then Cyril Reck, who you mentioned as far as a pathologist involved in the Kennedy assassination, and is still, often quoted as far as his consistency as far as there being a second gunman, that type of thing, in Dealey Plaza in 1963. But yet he looked at this autopsy video and felt that, as both of them felt, that it was legitimate. And that knocks them down a couple notches in my...
Took those guys through the mud.
Yes.
It's
unfortunate.
I want to go back to Midland real quick. When do you think we'll be able to see these pictures?
If everything continues on course at the pace that everything is going, it could be by early next year.
Why not let the public be the judge and jury?
Because we're talking about, first of all, a field where we walk on eggshells to begin with.
Right.
That until we come out with absolute definitive proof, again, this whole courtroom approach on our part, We could demonstrate, we could have a landing on the White House front lawn tomorrow, and 50% of the people still wouldn't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, it's not a case of where we need to prove this to the public as much as we have to prove it to ourselves. And that's where it still remains fluid until we are 100% convinced as to the legitimacy. And I don't know if that's ever possible. As we were talking about, it's never going to prove that the image depicts an actual alien. There's no such thing. There's no such photograph that exists, because you still need the actual cadaver. You still need the actual biological evidence, that type of thing.
You said that you don't have the picture in your possession. I understand that. Have you ever had it in your hands?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Is it browned? Is it weathered? Is it aged?
Yes. It for all the testing, the dating, it is.
You know, I'm fully jealous. This is it's rather uncool of you. You could have just told me no, and then I would have moved on. But that's pretty amazing. Now, what about the other stuff that goes when you talk about provenance? Is there a negative?
Everything so far is checking out.
Okay.
And that's another reason that we are taking our time. It's another reason that we are allowing the professionals, the experts, the people in their respective fields to make the final call on this. It's not going to be a case of where Tom Carey and Don Schmitt or Kevin Randle or Stan Friedman or anyone else says, now is the time we're going to present this.
You're not going to present it in your next book, are you? It's not going to be like that, is it?
No.
Okay, good.
That would be very anticlimactic.
Yes. And I've lost you. You faded away. Are you still there?
I am still here.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? Let's I'm going to reset your mind. Do the exact same thing that you did last time. Unplug it, plug it back in, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the archaeological digs, and we're going to give away a couple of your books. How's that?
Sounds great.
Oh, now you're clean. No, you're not. It's coming back. Okay, let's disconnect, and we'll reconnect in 2 minutes.
You got it.
Okay, bye. Got to do what we got to do to keep the show moving forward. This is Fade to Black. In a couple of minutes, I will open up the phone lines. Now, hold off on the phone calls while I reset everything, okay, everybody? And again, the rules are, it's got to be a first-time caller. Has to be. And it's got to be a great question for Don. We'll do that when we come back after the break. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Roswell Week with Don Schmitt. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
This is William from La Crescenta, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Jimmy Church.
My name is Alan, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio, the Revolution.
All right. Yeah, got to do what you got to do to keep it moving forward, rolling that rock uphill. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are live with Don Schmitt. Roswell Week. What an amazing conversation we're having here. Now, this is what we're going to do. All right, let me bring Don back on. I'm sure we'll be all reset and good to go. Don, are you back with us?
No.
See, you're good. It's a voltage thing, I'm telling you, with the USB. That's all it is. As you use it longer and longer, the voltage drops in the microphone. That's all it is. It's designed for what it's not designed for is 3 hours of babbling with Jimmy Church. That's not what it's designed for, my brother. All right, this is what I would like to do, Don. I've got two, and thank you for signing these. As you know, Don signed these in gold, and I have one copy of Witness to Roswell. I have Inside the Real Area 51. So I will leave it up to you. Don, which one, if you were going to tell somebody to read one of these two, which one would it be?
Well, Witness to Roswell, actually, based on the very title, we allow the witnesses pretty much speak for themselves. And that particular book was the #1 selling UFO book in the world for 2 years. And then everybody has always just ended with all the wreckage and the bodies going on the Wright Field, Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio.
Right.
So the new book, Inside the Real Area 51, The Secret History of Wright-Patterson, is a continuation. It's part 2 of the entire Roswell event. If it was merely a balloon, why did the wreckage and why, if there indeed were bodies, did they go on to this very secret special facility, this base in Dayton, Ohio? And then all the witnesses, all the rumors, all the stories of the underground vaults and hangars and cadavers being kept in cold storage at Wright-Pat through the years. So it's part 2.
Well, okay, you just did a really good dance. That was John Travolta at his best. Which one do you want the fans of this show to read? I'm going to give one of these away first.
If you have no background, no pre-knowledge of Roswell, certainly Witness.
Okay, we'll go with Witness. All right, and here comes...
If you don't know Roswell, then Wright-Pat.
You know what? When I was a kid, growing up in Indianapolis, we were stationed at Fort Ben Harrison there, which is the Army's, the military's finance center. All the checks, all the paychecks, and all the bills are paid out of Fort Ben Harrison. But right next, right across the state lines, probably, I don't know, seems like it was like an hour drive, maybe an hour and a half, is Dayton, Ohio. And we did a field trip one day. I can't remember what grade I was in, 6th grade, 7th grade. Went to Wright-Patterson. And I felt there's something special about Wright-Patterson. And this is the thing. When you have Edwards and Andrews and other large Air Force bases around this great country of ours, that they're all special in their own right, but Wright-Patterson is in a whole nother class for the United States Air Force.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It truly, truly is, and a kick-ass museum.
Yes, I was going to mention you certainly had to go to the museum.
Yes, that's why we went, and that museum is unbelievable. Okay, so we're going to give away Witness to Roswell. I'm opening up the phone lines, 323-825-5045. If somebody wants to Skype in, you can Skype in on Fade to Black 14. 323-825-5045. First-time caller. Great question for Don. Gets the book. Okay, so there you go. All right, and tomorrow night is Open Lines Thursday. I guess the general consensus is I think we're going to call it Fade to Black. Oh, you missed the first part of the show, Don. But we're trying to name Thursday nights. Thursday nights here at Fade to Black is absolute mayhem. It's back-to-back calls for 3 hours. It is. All right, here's the first caller. Let's go. Oh, man, I didn't just do that. Hang on.
Hello.
Hey, caller, you know what I just did? I hung up on Don at the same time, so I'm going to call Don back. And Luciano's calling here too. Okay, let's bring Don back in. First off, what's your name?
This is Justin. This is the East Tennessee Redneck.
Okay, Jeff, East Tennessee. Hey, Don, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, okay, Jeff is the East Tennessee Redneck. He just.
This is Justin.
Justin. I thought you said Jeff. You heard Jeff too, didn't you, Don?
Yes, well, from you.
Okay, there you go. All right, Justin, first-time caller.
Yes.
What's your question for Don tonight? Congratulations, by the way. You just won an autographed copy of Witness to Roswell. And I'm going to say this, and I need to run this home for you, how cool this is. This is signed in gold on the title page. And this is really tasty. Okay, what's your question for Don tonight?
Well, I got a two-parter. I hope it's worth winning a prize. But I was hoping to get his thoughts on the day after Roswell, the Corso book, fact or fiction. And my second part would be with this new advent of all these independent agencies, trying to reach the endeavor of the stars with SpaceX, who just recently had an accident, but SpaceX, Virgin, what are the chances of these companies and these people up in space seeing the things that NASA will not let us see? Will the government have a stranglehold on these companies, or do you think that they may disclose what they actually find?
Okay, for the first question, quickly, I had the good fortune of meeting the late Colonel Corso on 2 occasions. I was very impressed with his demeanor, with his reputation. Unfortunately, he didn't have all of the direct involvement with Roswell that would be attributed to him. And as a result, he had to rely on other people describing certain details to him. And unfortunately, some of that wasn't as accurate as we would have liked. In fact, some of it was not even genuine, not even legitimate. And he, unfortunately, in his latter years, he was quickly trying to, as so often people in that position, they try to put it all together. They try to wrap it all up, and they find that they can't screen and sift through so much of the information, and they tend to run with all of it. But a fine, reputable gentleman, I have no doubt about that for having met with him. And as far as NASA, as far as the government, as far as our space program, I always question the fact that the Pentagon leased the shuttle on many occasions, and I can't believe they were experimenting with pea pods and zero-gravity pharmaceutical concoctions. We can only guess what the Pentagon was doing in space time and time again. And just the very thought that, it's going on 50 years since we've been to the moon, and the thought that everything is shut down. I'm sure much of it went underground, just like these bases, like Wright-Patterson, and that we only see what's on the surface. And just as in space, we'd never know what was going on out there after all this time. And I'd like to believe that if they ever acknowledge life, even on Mars, for example, they would do it at in a fossilized bacterial, type of level of something that's non-threatening, something very primitive, very innocent in that regard. That man has to always remain superior, and the government has to always remain in control. And that's one of the reasons they don't acknowledge anything they're not in control of. And UFOs certainly would be at the top of that list, unfortunately.
Hey, Justin, thank you for the phone call, and congratulations. What I want you to do is write Rita right now, Rita at jimmychurchradio.com with your address, and we'll get this out to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jimmy.
All the best, Justin. Thank you. First-time caller. Call
Justin.
back. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Let's go right into the next caller. Let's keep this. Oh, I didn't just do that again.
No.
I did, and let me.
He'll call back. Quick.
No, I'm calling him back. I got to stop this. This is just crazy. It's just absolutely dumb of me.
It'll work well soon.
Oh, who's calling, and where are you calling from?
I'm Dave, calling from Studio City.
Hey, Dave from Studio City. How are you tonight?
Pretty good. Yeah, I got a question for Don. You interviewed some people recently. I can't think of who it was, and mentioned that there's expeditions going on at the crash site, and that there have been some artifacts found, like besides the rock, the Roswell rock, I think somebody found some metal that's being.
You know what?
analyzed or
Hey,
something.
hold on. I just lost Don. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get him back. And at some point, as good of friends as we are, he's really going to go, dude, this is it. Hey, Don, you with it? Don, you with us? It's still connecting. Having some problems tonight with the phone system. Let's try this again. This is so fun. This is too much. Hey, Dave, what part of Studio City are you in?
Oh, I'm down just one block south of Ventura, near Coldwater.
Over by Casa Vega?
Yeah, you know where the Ralph's is, and the Starbucks, and the Sportsman's Lodge.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit south of the Sportsman's Lodge, of one block south.
I keep dropping Don here. The call, I don't think it was me. That something is going on.
Could that be part of what the noise and the
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's I can't control the phone system. It's bizarre. But let's see if this one connects. Come on, Big Don. Don, are you with us? Yeah, this is it's not connecting. I don't know what is going on.
That's basically my question. Ask him if he's got any opinion on the rock and the other artifacts that have been found supposedly and being analyzed, or if he has any knowledge of that. And I can take my question off the air. Maybe that'll help.
You got it. I'll try it. Thank you. All right, Dave. All the best.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, I'm going to reset here, see if I can get Don back on the air. And it looks like he is there. This is, hey, Don, you there? Okay, let's see. Resetting. Let's just do it like this. So funny. I can't, I want everybody to understand, I cannot control software. It is just the way that it is. Okay, this is a full reset. Hey, Don?
Hello.
Full reset, all the way back. Yeah, I don't know what was dropping. It wasn't me, and it wouldn't reconnect. You kept popping up and going away, but you're back with us. The caller... and Dave, by the way, right, Rita. Anyway, he wanted to know about the Roswell rock, and that was his question. Have you ever have you seen it? What's your opinion on it?
Roswell rock. There have been a number of rocks.
Okay,
one specifically has an inscription on it. And it was found at another location, a site that is not legitimate. It's a bogus site. And if he's talking about this rock with this almost like a crop circle inscription.
I think that's the one he's referring to. That's the one that's, is popular this week.
Right. It matches, it's identical to a whole series of rock designs that the museum in Roswell used to carry in their gift shop as souvenirs.
Have you? What I had heard, I had read a bunch of analysis of it over the last couple of weeks, and it was just that they are very, 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 very easy to reproduce and sandblast. You could crank out a couple hundred of them in a day if you knew what you were doing.
It's a rock.
It's a rock.
I'm sorry. We're looking for the memory metal. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, now I want to get to that, actually. I was talking about that last night with, as you know, we're going to be going out to Roswell next year. We're going to do the
looking forward to it.
Yeah,
great
the
time.
Fade to Black party bus, man. It's going to be the place to be. But what I want to do, I want to go out to the crash site, and with the metal detector, I want to do this myself. I know you've done a lot of this over the years.
We've had 4 separate archaeological digs. Yes.
Did you find anything, and the second part is, would I find anything? What have you guys dug up?
The one piece of evidence that I'm most impressed by, for years we had first-hand witnesses describe to us and then independently would take us to the site where they claimed that there was a gouge, where something had impacted and skipped across the ground for hundreds of feet at the upper pinnacle from as far as the debris field. About 10 feet wide, a few inches deep, and through the erosion, both the rain and wind erosion through the years, everything is filled in, so you can't see it from the surface. Well, in the 2002 dig, we had the okay of bringing in a backhoe operator with a shovel. And he's an archaeologist working with a field technician. So they've worked even over in Egypt. They've worked as far as in Mexico. He has the touch. He operates the shovel in such a way that it doesn't destroy any possible artifacts, any evidence. And the shovel we had him focus on that very location, and he was scooping perpendicular to where the gouge was supposedly located. And even his ground technician described that the shovel was jumping. It was hitting a pocket of loose sediment. And when it was pulled away, there right below the surface was a V. Was a symmetrical V, but again, it was exactly where the witnesses told us it was located. Those years, so it demonstrated a point of impact, that something had impacted and it skipped across the ground. And a weather balloon, I can assure all your listeners, does not leave an impact site.
No. When you first went out to the crash site, was that gouge still visible or partially?
No,
okay.
No.
And what else have you found? You did the dig in 89. You did the one in 02, 06.
06, and then the last one was just last October.
And anything you can discuss?
What I'm becoming concerned about is it appears as though somebody is actually salting the site, planting pieces of very common, very off the shelf, again, to use that term, pieces of aluminum, fragments that are scattered throughout that area, and they're not in the outlying area. So in other words, if we would do a control sampling of the outlying area, we wouldn't find any of this. It's only at this location. For example, about 5 years ago, someone sprayed nails throughout the one whole side of the site.
Oh, just completely uncool.
So you can imagine being out there with metal detectors and you're having to wade through, cans and cans of nails, spread out through the site. And this is open pasture, open grazing property. It's owned by the Bureau of Land Management. It's leased back to the ranch owner strictly for grazing of cattle and sheep. And I guess it's important enough that they contaminate it, and with the hope that we give up and thinking we're ever going to find anything because they keep salting phony material.
Let's take another call. You are live with Don Schmitt. I'm Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Steve from Bluefield, Virginia.
Hey, Steve. How are you tonight? Say hi to Don.
I'm good, man. Don,
hey, Steve.
What's up, man?
How you doing, Steve?
Don, my question is, buddy, going fine, buddy. Okay, the picture that was in the newspaper of, I believe it's Jesse Marcel, right? Holding the debris. Okay.
Not the debris, the weather balloon.
Yeah, not
okay. Yeah. the weather balloon. Yeah. He was also holding a letter in his hand. And there were some people that was doing...
Right. Let me stop you there. It wasn't him. It was General Ramey.
General Ramey was holding a telex, right.
Yes.
Okay. And there were some people trying to zoom that in. That it was facing the camera.
That was us, yes.
Yes.
Have you all made any headway on able to read that entire letter?
Hey, Steve, great question. Thank you.
Absolutely. In 1990, when we first learned that the original negatives were still available. Now, these pictures were taken by a reporter-photographer from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram by the name of James B. Johnson. And he was assigned to immediately get out to the base, that there was going to be a press conference. He was the only reporter allowed in the general room when he took these pictures. 2 of them of Marcel, 2 of Ramey alone, and then 2 of Ramey and his chief of staff, DeBose. Ramey's holding this piece of paper in the 4 shots of him. In only one of them is there some text facing the camera. And in scanning, in creating as far as an actual scan from the original negative, for all intents and purposes, we have the actual negative in hand. And we've been relying mainly on Dr. David Rudiak's analysis, for which he feels he can read 75% of that text. And to me, the most intriguing, most significant line is the line which reads, on blank blank, you forwarded the victims of the wreck to blank blank at Fort Worth, Texas. Now, victims of the wreck certainly would not apply to, again, a weather balloon. And interesting that they would use the word victims when typically the military uses the word casualties. So if we're talking about a document that specifically is addressing the Roswell incident, we have victims of the wreck. Well,
hey, Don, this static on your line is just, it's right at critical mass. It is.
Wow.
It is crazy what everybody is listening to, and you can't hear it at all, can you?
No, it's clean.
This is hysterical. And I'm about to lose my mind with it. I just see I'm taking you away. That's Don gone. That's Don's line. This is what's coming in on the Skype line. Wow. Yeah, it's unbelievable. You know what? Hey, Don, I'm going to reset one last time so we could say goodnight correctly. I'm not going to do this for our fans and listeners out there. So just stay put. I'm going to reset and do the same thing with the Eurospeed. Give me 2 minutes. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Thank you, Don. Thank you.
You bet.
I do not know what is causing this. It is, and I will say this. It's right when he is saying something important. I think we're being messed with. Like on the full real, on the down low. Too much. This is Fade to Black. We're just going to reset. I'll be back right after this. And I'll see if we can squeeze in one more phone call. I want to give away this other book. All right, it's got to be a first-time caller. See if we have the time. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Unbelievable. Fade to Black. Yeah. This is a test of my nerves. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Got to stay calm, stay cool, stay collected, and just get this done. That's all you can do. This is Fade to Black. And Don, I know you're back with us because I can hear the noise.
Came back with me?
Listen, we've got just a little bit of time left. I want to give away the other books, so let's open up the phone lines. Also, our friend down in Brazil wants to call in too, and so I know he's listening. Yeah, here comes the noise again. Don, this is crazy.
And I do this all over the world.
Yeah. There's, it's a weird night. It's a weird night, and for everybody out there listening, it's just so disappointing. And I want everybody to know it's not us. It's simply not us. Jeez.
I'm sitting here in my office.
Yeah.
And I can see you on the screen, puffing out your cheeks. Your photograph.
Okay, here's Luciano. Luciano, we're dealing with.
What is he doing up this late?
Yeah, Don, this noise. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Luciano, are you there? Yeah, we've got issues. Don, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Now you're clean. Luciano, yeah, he's calling from Brazil. His call did drop officially. So there you go. If he does call back, let me see if I can pull him back in here. He was saying last night, Luciano, are you with us? Luciano? Okay, it's still connecting. Okay. He was saying last night that there was some crash. That's Luciano. Luciano, are you there? Okay. Yeah, we're not connecting to Luciano. He was saying last night that there was a crash down in Argentina. And Jesse is going to go down there and go and check it out. There was a retrieval and some debris. Have you heard about this?
Yes, we've talked about that. In fact, I've talked at length with Jess about that. And he's going to keep me updated, certainly. But leave it again to the civilian investigators to always follow up on such things, because it's unfortunate that the press talk about becoming famous overnight by uncovering such an incident. And it's such a taboo topic, they just won't touch it.
What do you know about it?
I really don't. And I think that's what, it doesn't bother me as much as it's just a general curiosity, because I've had the boy crying wolf so many times with physical evidence, with photographs, with film. We talked about the autopsy, that type of thing. That my position, Jimmy, has always been that if any one of us wins regarding, solving the mystery of the UFO phenomenon, we all win. Whoever. It's like anybody who's worried about taking the credit for everything, they're never going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, that's something that bothers me. And Eugene just tweeted that your thoughts on the Malibu base, the Malibu deep underwater base. Have you, I know that we've talked about it privately, but what do you think about when you first saw the pictures? How did that impact you?
We have to be careful that we're not talking about like structures on the moon or on Mars. Much of it's open to interpretation, but the difference is this is accessible. This is something, we're not even talking about 2 miles down, looking for the Titanic. This is just, off the shoreline. And so this should be something that is, quickly investigated. A resolution brought. The pictures certainly look interesting.
Wait till you
see the columns, and you see the opening the shelf. It looks like it's an entrance to something.
Wait till you see the video. We're just about done It should be online tomorrow. We're about 95% finished. But when you check this out, some of the new images that we presented last week at UPARS, there's some stuff going on the inside there, and the video is just about finished. The people at UPARS got to see it in real time, and there's some funny business going on. And
you actually see some activity.
It's there to the right, and you can't see this in some of the Google images. We've done some analysis and stuff on the pictures, and to the right, when you're looking straight in to the entrance, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns there, all the way to the right. The in between the two rightmost columns, there appears to be a square rectangular shape. The best way I can describe it is almost like a metal screen door, and it's there like two doors, like French doors. And there's and right in the middle where you would have two door handles that are close together, next to each other on French doors. There looks like there's something there too as well, and it's very symmetrical. It's very obvious, and when you look at this, that's where you kind of scratch your head, like, "Holy crap! What is that? That is something." And we'll have that video out tomorrow.
Excellent. I look forward to it. And any such investigation, it always takes a tremendous amount of funding. If you send down a mini sub or anybody, actually, to hire a ship and crew to actually go out and look into this. And that's where, unfortunately, they always have us at their beck and call, because we don't have the unlimited resources and the personnel as they do to maintain silence regarding the subject.
Luciano just said the debris is a weird piece of metal when he's talking about in Argentina.
Yes.
He says the debris is a weird piece of metal when put against the light. A weird polarization happens and it turns translucent.
Yes. That's what I've heard.
That's crazy.
And I would be. But the main thing is, who's the source? Who's the owner? Where did it originate? And unfortunately, we live in such a fantastic era as far as special effects and new technologies that can literally create anything to appear out of this world, so to speak.
So the crash happened in the 80s, he says here, and left a 9-foot deep crater in a ranch. Why are we just now, and I'm going to throw this at Luciano too as well, why are we just now starting to hear about this? Or was this something that was fully investigated down in Argentina in the 80s, or was it something that was suppressed? And the Argentine government has always been pretty open about this kind of stuff.
Yes, they have been. So, but though it's there's a pattern. Whenever we hear of a potential foreign case, we always ask, were there American suits present? And whenever they tell us, yes, we know it's a good case. And then all the less chance we're going to hear about it. If American personnel were involved, that might be one of the reasons that we've never heard of this until recently.
Yeah, probably. No, probably, of course. The thing is, and you've experienced this enough, it seems that with the Roswell crash, it was like a dry run, a dress rehearsal, a practice of suppression. Let's get this down. Let's get this dance correct, because ever since Roswell, it seems to be the method of operation for Washington, D.C. Exactly what they did with Roswell is what they've done every step of the way. And certainly Dr. Hynek experienced it firsthand.
And one of the things that most of your listeners wouldn't be aware of is that even the ridicule factor was established as a result of Roswell. And wouldn't you know that it was the same individual who was part of the arbiter of the weather balloon explanation, General Roger Ramey, was on an El Paso radio program just a few days after his balloon press conference. And the host of the show asked him, well, that would explain what happened over in Roswell, but isn't it true that there have been flying disc reports in every state throughout the country? To which Ramey responded, yes, that's true, except for Kansas, which is a dry state. So for the first time, it was suggested that only people that over-imbibe, only people that drink have such experiences.
Oh, that is interesting.
And it took off from there.
Yes. We're crazy. And the whole tinfoil hat, all of that. And it worked because, and I talk about it so much. Even my own experiences, Don, where I've had, I've never mentioned this to you, but I've had 3 sightings. One of them I photographed. The other 2 I didn't. Mm-hmm. But in the first experience the first sighting that I had in Monterey, California, which I did photograph, I only photographed it because I was taking pictures. I was taking pictures of friends.
You happen to be taking pictures, yeah.
Yeah, I happened to be there. And but I never mentioned, I put that picture away, aside from showing it to maybe 1 or 2 people in the very, very beginning. I didn't mention that for 10 or 15 years. I did not want to be the victim of, and I wanted to be the sensible guy, and I just let it go. I mean, I literally filed it away, not only in my brain, but the picture too. It got tucked away.
Well, you would have risked your career, your reputation. You would have even become somewhat of a laughing stock within your own family, your own relation. This was all orchestrated, 67 years ago. It was one of the things that even the Air Force, and then with the Robertson Panel Committee, as far as with the CIA in 53, the idea that they needed to discredit the reporters of such things, the witnesses. They weren't concerned about the phenomena as much as if the right people start reporting these things, it would get out of hand. And as a result, they had to constantly create the stereotype that it was nothing but late-night people, after having 1 or 2 many, who were out driving or fishing, off of some dock or plowing in some field, and open to seeing the moon and racing, away, thinking it was an invasion from Mars. It's worked. It's worked because the topic is totally taboo with the American media.
I got to thank you for coming on with us tonight. It was all that and more.
Well, I apologize if I had anything to do as far as with the technical.
None of that matters. It's the conversation that matters.
It's part of the game. It's part of the dance, as we've often put it. I'm not paranoid. I know you're not. If anything, if anybody's having fun with us, I'm encouraged by it, because obviously we must be getting on close to something. Otherwise, they would never bother.
Luciano, just one last tweet, and we are back up against it. So I need a 30-second answer from you, Don, before I say goodnight. Luciano said, have you ever been threatened?
No.
Okay.
And I think that was because of our policy of just shining, as I described, a lot of light on the investigation. And it's when one remains anonymous that when things happen, nobody puts 2 and 2 together. So we've, again, tried to stay a step ahead of such things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Let's do it again. I enjoyed it. just tremendously.
All the best, Don. All the best, and listen.
And the same to you. Thank you.
And off air, I still want to know, about your hair products. I'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Don. You have a great night, man.
Thank you, Jimmy. You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And right then, the noise comes back. Wow. Thank you, everybody, for putting up with those technical issues tonight. I do want everybody to know it's something that is completely out of our hands. And Luciano from Brazil, we tried to connect with him. It's just it's the technical nature of doing a show like this. But thank you, Don. Absolute gentleman for putting up with all of that. Thank goodness it all happened at the end of the show. That's the main thing. And I was mentioning the reason why we haven't got the video up yet. It is 3 hours long. That's the first thing. Second, it's got probably 50 images in the video. And everything needs to be presented and locked down and done. It's just like anything else. If you're doing a 3-hour feature film, I mean, that's what this is. It's a lot of editing and it's a lot of work. And it's audio, it's video, it's still images. But we are just about done with that. And it's pretty amazing. I'm pretty proud. So we will have that up tomorrow. It should be with all of the edits and the effects and everything else that is done to the video. It should render for about 36 hours, but hopefully we will have everything up and running with that tomorrow. And it's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to it. I want everybody's feedback, and it's pretty painful to watch yourself in video for 3 hours, but nonetheless, we managed to get through it. So again, thank you, Don. Just an absolutely cool evening. What a great guy. And that's that. Tomorrow night, what are we calling tomorrow? Is it fade to Thursday? What was it? I can't even remember. This is Fade to Black. KJCR only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Where are you going to post it, Michael? It will be on YouTube tomorrow. All right. Thank you, Don, and everybody else who called in tonight. Stay tuned. Coming up next is the Weekly Bleep. It's a new show. I think it premiered last week. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producers Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. The announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is by Doug Aldrich. That's right. Show intro is performed by Space Boy. That new logo is done by Sherilyn, by the way. We'll get that posted up there. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, open lines Thursday. Fade to chat. Is that what it was? Fade to chat? Sitting on my couch having a conversation Thursday? That's what I'm talking about. Fade to wrap up. That's from Eugene. Fade to the weekend from Dave Matherly. I'm out of here. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. See you tomorrow night. Be safe. See ya.